right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 11th, 2017. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here in UCY.TV. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is a very nice 67 degrees, partly sunny, but soon to be raining here in upstate New York. So where do we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Brain-Zapping on Demand, Tech Addiction, Trojan Horse, and Dopamine. And yeah, had to talk about some of those dopamine buttons again and what they could do, but found some disturbing things. There's that new device called the ELF Emmit, $99 in everybody's Christmas stocking next year for Christmas, and you can dial up a mood and decide with your little smartphone device what frequency you want to pump into your brain, and hence give yourself a new lace on your day. We can be happy, we can be sleepy, we can concentrate. And I think that's where the future is going to come to. They, of course, want you to get used to brain entrainment long before they send the white coats after you. And remember, Tommy Insel, moving from the director of the National Institute of Mental Health over to Google's Verily division to find out ways to not only diagnose, but to cure mental disease utilizing a smartphone on a spectrum. Is that DSM is so outdated? I honestly see the dots connecting here now. We spent a lot of time looking at frequencies and looking at remote mind control and targeting and microwaves and that type of thing, and showing how it is very possible, even with some of the DoD operations during the Gulf War, some of the CIA covert ops that were happening. I think it's been shown that they can hijack at least some of your consciousness. They can manipulate you through one way or another. And I mean, obviously, sex, cocaine, and sugar, those are all good ones. That's what they use on commercials, on TV, to get you to buy things. I don't think they... Sex, fast cars, and sugar, maybe. And rock and roll. That's how they get you to buy things on TV, but, it becomes more insidious when they're trying to sway an entire population to start thinking a different way. And this whole new 21st century George Jetson world of Agenda 21 is where they want to start nudging us. And that's what we read one time before when they were talking about watching decision-making processes being made in the brain and them being able to influence them, ever so slightly. They were calling it nudging. They can nudge your decisions. They can make you think. Just like I told you years ago, my boss always told me, you can't go running in there with an idea and try to stuff it down people's throats because nobody's going to want it. What you do is you make them think that it's their idea. Oh. And when you make them think that it's their idea, and then you encourage them forward with their idea, they run with it. I think that's what they're doing right now. They're making us think that using these dopamine addiction devices, i.e. our cell phone, our computer, soon to be our wearables, the ELF Emmit wearable, and then implantables. We're going to look at those today, hopefully. We are thinking we are in control. We are thinking, oh, look, now we have a dashboard. We can see how well we are. This Fitbit thing, oh, let's compete against our friends. Peer pressure, we talked about that too. Peer pressure has been a big motivator. Not only make you think that it's your idea or that you're going to utilize these tools because you decided you were going to get healthy. But let's now employ a little bit of peer pressure from our friends, from our co-workers, from our family members, hey, from our insurance company. Make it fun. Make it profitable. Dangling carrot. And they will push it just a little bit further. That envelope will creep a little bit higher up that ladder. Till one day, before you know it, these things are going to be so integrated into our lives that we're not going to be able to get rid of them. Now, we ended up the show yesterday reading a story called Tech Bigwigs Know How Addictive Their Products Are. Why don't the rest of us? This is out of Wired magazine back from a week ago, March 2017. And there were a lot of different people, not just Steve Jobs, that had said that they would not allow their kids to play with technology. I had mentioned before, not just with my own child, but with friends, children. There's definitely a marked difference in their behavior from when they've been on technology or watched technology, been in front of technology, versus not touched technology. I don't know, I find my daughter tends to be more defiant and less susceptible to my suggestion, less willing to be helpful, to be empathetic, to want to hang out with her mom. She wants to go sit in front of the video game if she's touched it. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that junky look in her eyes. And then what we caught her doing, like every time, it takes a few days of detox after maybe she's gotten her hands on one of the mobile devices and snuck off somewhere. But after she's touched one, another thing that happens is that she'll be sneaking it. She'll go find it. She'll go search, hunt it down, and do whatever it takes, and then finds a quiet little spot somewhere to go run and hide off to play with it. And I know I was a kid once, and I really don't want to deprive her of things. I mean, who wouldn't want to play a little fun video game? But on the other hand, it really has such a incredible capacity to change the personality. Like, and all it takes is just once, because then you have somebody who's acting like a junkie. They'll do anything to get it. They'll sneak around. They'll lie. And that's not my kid. My kid doesn't do that stuff. And I know everybody says, "Oh, my kid doesn't do that stuff," and I'm sure we all did. I was a little piss pot, but it's just a switch flip. I can see it. It's a literal switch flip from a good kid who just has no clue and would never even want to do that stuff to pink. She's going to become this other person and do whatever it takes to manipulate me, to try to get me to give her this thing. It's not happening. So anyway, let's continue the last little bit of this story about the tech giants knowing that their technology is irresistible and addictive, and they don't give it to their children, but they sell it to ours. It says a like on Facebook and on Instagram strikes one of those neurological notes. That is the reward system, as does the reward of completing the World of Warcraft mission or seeing a tweet shared by hundreds of Twitter users. People who create and refine technology, games, and interactive experiences. And this is where we left off yesterday. Those people are all very good at what they do. They run thousands of tests with millions of users to learn what tweaks in their game or in their social media campaign which tweaks work and which tweaks don't, and which background colors, fonts, audio tones, and other things maximize the engagement and minimize the frustration. And as an experience evolves, and this is called the user experience, it becomes an irresistible, weaponized version of the experience that it started out from. In 2004, Facebook was fun. In 2016, Facebook is addictive. Addictive behaviors have existed for a long time, but in recent decades, they've become more common, harder to resist, and more mainstream. And these new addictions don't involve the ingestion of a substance, and they don't directly introduce chemicals into your system, but they produce the same effects because they are compelling and well designed. Some, like gambling and exercise, are old. Others, like binge viewing and smartphone use, are relatively new, but they all become progressively more difficult to resist. And meanwhile, we made the problem worse by focusing on the benefits of goal setting without considering its drawbacks. Goal setting was a useful motivational tool in the past because most of the time humans prefer to spend as little time and energy as possible doing anything. We are not intuitively hardworking unless, of course, you had Eastern European roots. Those were some pretty hard workers. I mean, most of the backbone of America was a pretty hard worker. I would have to say we've lost that over a few generations. Now we got the slug generation. You know, many of these kids, that's all they do, sit in front of the video games. They won't go out and help do anything. Can't get them to rake a leaf or pull a weed. Never, ever going to happen. Well, what kind of a future is that going to be? These kids can't even, like, help around the house. How are they ever going to take care of themselves? They won't be. That isn't what they're supposed to be doing. They're going to be sucked into the machine by then. See, and they can hire the robot nanny to do it for them, but they won't have to. It's very disturbing. We are not intuitively hardworking. So like I said, speak for yourself. We are also not intuitively virtuous or healthy, but the tide has turned, and we are now so focused on getting more done in less time that we have now forgotten to introduce the emergency brake. This author spoke to several clinical psychologists who described the magnitude of this problem. Every single person I work with, says one psychologist, has at least one behavioral addiction. I have patients who fit into every area: gambling, shopping, social media, email, and so on. She describes several patients, all with high-powered professional careers, earning six figures, but deeply hobbled by their addictions. One woman is very beautiful, very bright, very accomplished. She has 2 master's degrees, and she's a teacher. But she's also addicted to online shopping. She's managed to accumulate $80,000 in debt shopping online. Ouch. But she managed to hide her addiction from almost everyone she knows, except that she probably has a new outfit every day, for every day of the year. Never wore anything twice. This compartmentalization was a common theme. It's very easy to hide behavioral addictions, much, much more so than for substance abuse. And that is what makes these dangerous, because they can go unnoticed for years. A second patient, just as accomplished at work, managed to hide her Facebook addiction from her friends. She went through a horrible breakup and then stalked her ex-boyfriend online for years. Oh, well, poor Johnny. Don't put all those pictures out there, Johnny, and then you won't get stalkers. And with Facebook, it is far more difficult to make a clean break when the relationship ends. Use the block button there, Susie. That's all it takes. Or the delete button. A man, she's checked his email 100 times a day, and he is incapable of relaxing and enjoying himself on vacation, but you'd never know it. He is deeply anxious, but he presents so well in the world. He has a successful career in the healthcare industry, and you'd never know how much he suffers. And this is this dopamine button, and I noticed they haven't even mentioned the word dopamine yet in this article anywhere since starting yesterday. But that's what this is all about. Ding, 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 ding. They're pushing that button, regardless if it's shopping, Facebook, email, Twitter, video games, whatever. When you go to the next level, it is that sense of accomplishment, that sense of getting something, that sense of gratification that comes with accomplishment. That's what the ding is. And, I don't think your brain cares if it's like real accomplishment or if it's manufactured accomplishment in a little 3D world. It's the same push button. Obviously, I feel way better when it's an accomplishment in the real world, like, hey, I spent the whole weekend cleaning, and look at how nice and clean my house looks. That's a real booster to me versus, yay, I got to another level in asteroids. I actually do have an old version of asteroids on my phone. And no, I don't play them. I did every once in a while. It's fun. Brings me back, but I don't find video games too fun. They get frustrating because I get killed a lot. Don't die, because then you become a red shirt. Red shirts don't have fun. All right, anyway. So you notice, interestingly enough, they have not mentioned dopamine in here at all in any of this. And I am a little disturbed by that. Wired magazine is laying out this whole big outlay, but they don't mention the elephant in the room. Irresistible traces the rise of addictive behaviors. I guess that must be a movie. Examining where they begin, who designs them, the psychological tricks that make them so compelling, and how to minimize dangerous behavioral addiction, as well as harness the same science for beneficial ends. And if app designers can coax people to spend more time and money on a smartphone game, perhaps policy experts can also encourage people to save more for retirement or donate to more charities. Now, guys, this is the one thing that's frightening, is that these interface designers and these people who are coming up with all these newfangled 21st century cures ideas are all working on ways to make our devices more and more a part of us, more and more to be dependent upon. That's why they're calling it irresistible. I'm trying to see, this story's way so long, I can't even read this whole thing. And it's all on a really white page with little tiny text, so it's making my eyes get all skitsy on the page, so it's not even a fun story to read. But we need to realize that they want us to put our information into them. They want us to depend on them. They want us to get sucked more and more into the machine, because then your data becomes part of the data broker's storehouse of this new treasure trove. And that treasure trove is our personal data, but our personal data ad nauseum. We talked about that before. We talked about how right now we're at this cusp where our personal information, and it's not just your name or address or social security number. We used to be so worried about our social security number getting out there, but it's so beyond that now. We have our DNA swab, and then just about everybody at some point or another has had to, if not give DNA, had to do a blood sample or something to get a test. Your blood has been has been scanned somewhere along the way. I don't know too many people who have gotten away over the last 20 years since they've had this technology without having to give up blood for something or a swab or a spit. And remember, even if you don't give it up, all you got to do is drink from a glass, or chew out a piece of chewing. My brain's like working backwards this morning. Spit out a piece of chewing gum, smoke a cigarette, put out a butt. They really wanted to do forensics on you. You got it, because that's all they have to do. There was that woman, that chewing gum woman in New York City, that was making art out of people's faces. And she was creating those faces out of garbage she was collecting on the street, chewing gum and cigarette butts. And then, I don't know, she was some sort of scientist too, but she was an artist on the side. And she was taking their DNA from their leftover discarded items and then creating a DNA profile and running it through, I don't know if it was maybe some computer program, showing all the facial features and then creating a sculpture out of the face, what they supposedly look like. And it was frightening. And I would almost bet that it was probably pretty accurate. A lot of those traits are built right into your genes as to what your eyes are going to look like, or the height of your brow, or your nose, or whatever. It was pretty weird. Anyway, all right, so let's move on, because I'm rambling. It's 25 minutes after already. Let's hit through some of these stories. So there was another one, Business Insider, and we knew this as well, but hey, it sounds good when finally you hear mainstream talking about this. From 2 weeks ago. The smartphone is eventually going to die, and then things are going to get really crazy. We've talked about that too. I mean, the smartphone is just the next step to the wearable, and then once the wearable becomes commonplace, the next step beyond that is the implantable, and they already are working on both of those. One day, not too soon, but still sooner than you think, the smartphone will all but vanish, like the wave the beepers and fax machines did before it. And make no mistake, we're still probably about a decade away from any kind of meaningful shift away from the smartphone. I don't know. These VR goggles and things, and they tried to push Google Glass once. It didn't work, but if they make it really cool now and do like a single eyeball-y thing or whatever, I think it'll take... Anyway, they think that it'll be at least a decade away from any type of meaningful shift away from the smartphone. Yet piece by piece, the groundwork for the eventual demise of the smartphone is already being laid. Elon Musk, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, and countless other startups are playing a part in that happening. And let me tell you, this is the author, that was me. If and when the smartphone does die, that's when things are going to get really weird for everybody. Not just in terms of individual products, but in terms of how we actually live our everyday lives, and maybe, just maybe, our humanity itself. Ding, 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 ding. I told you that. That's what this is all about. This is about completely usurping humanity 1.0. This is what they are calling the next version of evolution. They are self-directing that evolution. This is not a natural evolution. This is something that the lunatics in charge are making happen. Anything that they are making happen is probably not in our best interest in the long run. So I would say look before you leap. Don't tra-la-la along like they want you to. The Pied Piper of the smartphone device, dopamine addicted. Because that's what they want you to do right off the cliff. With all the other lemmings. Don't do it. Here's a brief look at the slow, ceaseless march toward the death of the smartphone and what the post-smartphone world is shaping up to look like. Oh, good. He's going to do some short and long-term versions. The short term, people think of the iPhone and the smartphone, and it inspired things. And they were revolutionary devices, small enough to carry everywhere, hefty enough to handle the increasingly large number of daily tasks, and packed full of the right mix with camera GPS sensors. and making apps like Snapchat and Uber uniquely possible. But consider the smartphone from another perspective. The desktop and the laptop are made up of some combination of a mouse, keyboard, monitor, and the smartphone just took that model, shrank it, and made the input virtual touch-based. The next iPhone 2 is said to be shipping with upgrades to Siri, and it's aimed at bringing augmented reality into the mainstream. The Galaxy S8 is going to be shipping with Bixby, a new virtual assistant that Samsung is promising will let you control every feature and app with just your voice. It is also shipping with a new version of the Gear VR virtual reality headset developed in conjunction with Facebook Oculus. See, ding, ding, ding. VR and AR are coming. And that's going to be with this next step, this next version of these cell phones. Remember, 5G is coming as well. It's something they're trying to roll out here. We already talked about them in South Korea with Verizon. Being able to roll out the new 3D hologram FaceTime, like the Princess Leia Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope type hologram. That'd be just too weird. And they said eventually you're going to have full room, full-size holograms. We also talked about in Japan they had touchable holograms. We'll be able to reach out and give Nan a big hug. But it's coming, people. Things are changing very quickly. You know, these are baby steps. Like I said, boiling frog, we don't really notice it, and it's kind of cool. Look, every year it comes to be the holidays, and there's always got to be some new fangled technology that everyone jumps on board. If the price is right, they sell bazillions of them. So that's in the short term, the new Galaxy and the new iPhone, both with some sort of virtual or augmented reality. But in the midterm, all these various experimental and first stage technologies will then start to congeal into something familiar but bizarre. And that is not me. That is Business Insider saying that. And I mean, come on. We've talked about all of this, okay? And yeah, we've talked about like Bizarro Land and exactly where this is going to take us. So this isn't a surprise, but it seems to me like people in the mainstream-ish media are really starting to come to terms with some of this. And the scary thing is I don't see anyone talking about stopping the train. And to be honest, I don't know if there is any stopping the train. It's called progress. We become all but dinosaurs and get old and obsolete. It's what happens. And it's frightening. That is what's happening. Again, you know, our generation, the one generation, the last generation that stood on the cusp between the computerized world and the analog world, Generation X. We're probably the last generation that'll be able to remember even what it was like before the days of computers. Remembers what it was like to have an analog childhood. And as we become obsolete dinosaurs and too old and distracted to stand up and do much of anything because we're tired. Just true. I have to say, I definitely don't have the vim and vinegar I used to have. But I don't know. We just can't let it go with a whimper. We got to do something. This is insanity. So in the midterm, yes, in the midterm, all these various experimental and first stage technologies will start to congeal into something familiar but bizarre. Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and the Google-backed Magic Leap are all working to build standalone augmented reality headsets which project detailed 3D images straight into your eyes. Now that is interesting. These new 3D augmented reality headsets are going to be projecting 3D images into your eye. Now, what have we talked about so many times? That Orbitofrontal Cortex. And why you don't want to ever let companies such as Google get near your eye. You want to know why? Because that is a direct connect to your brain. That is a direct connect to your input device. Your understanding of the world. Remember, they talked about, Kurzweil had talked about once they get nanobots connected to your neocortex that'll connect you 24/7 to the internet. All they really got to do for virtual reality to suck you directly right into the machine is just kind of flip a few switches to change your sensory inputs from your physical one, your eyes, your ears, your touch, sense, smell, whatever. There's one little area in the brain, beep. They can flip those switches and turn them somewhere else and bring input in from other places. Well, guys, beaming things directly into your eyeballs, and who knows what they're even beaming, and could they be beaming little frequencies? I'm sure. Who knows? Who knows what they'll be beaming? I would be very frightened of anything beamed directly into my eyeball. Microsoft's Alex Kipman recently told Business Insider that augmented reality could flat out replace the smartphone, the TV, and anything else with a screen. Your computers and everything. There is not much use for a separate device sitting in your pocket or on your entertainment center or on your desk if all your calls, chats, movies, and games are beamed directly into your eyes and overlaid on the world around you. At the same time, gadgetry like Amazon Echo or Apple's own AirPods become more and more important in this world, and as AI like Siri, Amazon's Alexa, Samsung's Bixby, and Microsoft's Cortana get smarter, and IBM's Watson. We can talk about Watson maybe. Watson's been hired now as a tag support. There will rise, not just in talking computers, but talking computers talking back. In other words, computers will hijack your senses. Ding, 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 ding. Like I told you, that's what it's about, guys. They are sucking us in. That's it. Once your senses are hijacked, you no longer are part of this physical world. Oh, no. You might physically be standing here, just like in the Matrix. They were just laying, comatose in a chair. But they were literally somewhere else mentally. Don't be a body in a pod somewhere hanging in a room underground, because this is really frightening. And this is what could happen, and this is why all this technology that we've been talking about, including going back to the psychotronic weapons and all that, your mind is who you are. Your mind is what makes you question things. Your mind is everything. Without our minds, even if our bodies are still here, if we are just our shell with nothing left upstairs, that's not you anymore. It's the package, but you've left the building. And this frightens me, because this is almost like the invasion of the mind snatchers versus invasion of the body snatchers. And I was telling my daughter about that movie the one night at dinner. I don't know how it came up, but just about how it was raining and these things. We didn't even know it was raining from outer space, but they started growing on the trees as it was warm and damp after the rain. I think we should watch that movie again. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is almost what this is like, except this is happening for real. And it's the invasion of the mind snatchers, the brain invaders. And they're little Trojan horses, and they're all done happy, little pretty faces. And they give you a feel-good feeling. And we're all just taking it with a big smile. Let's watch our movies. Let's play our video games. Let's go on Facebook. Let's buy some more stuff we don't need off of Amazon. Let's ask Siri all kinds of dumb questions. Guys, we have just so separated ourselves from what's really important in life and come to depend on these devices that, the day that somebody decides, whether it be North Korea, I don't know if you guys caught that. I'm sure everyone must have by now. 150,000 Chinese troops sitting on the North Korean border. Ding. Yeah, that's going to work out well. China's pissed off at us. Russia's kind of pissed off at us after the Syrian thing. All it's going to take, guys, is like an EMP. Poof. And all these devices, at least the consumer devices, are going to go down. And everyone's going to be jonesing because they won't be able to get on social media or post their pictures to Instagram. Now, all the big controllers, all the big machines that are out there controlling this back end are probably very well Faraday caged, I would imagine. So don't worry, they won't lose your full history of all the things you've done online over the last 20 years, but you will lose access. And you know what? Here's the thing. Maybe during the recovery period over the next 5 years of mayhem that happens as our whole country is without power, for those of us who survive, we'll be given the option. Since there's no doctors and it's hundreds of miles to a hospital and you can't be treated here, these little nanobots in your blood will be like your little robot doctors. They'll take care of everything. They can fix you even if they don't quite know anything is wrong yet, and you'll be able to use them to connect with double blinks of your eyes to the internet and all your other friends out there without ever even having to touch a screen. We saw there was a TV show or some sort of new series that I'd run across when I was searching something else that was along those same lines. It was post-apocalypse, and they all had gotten these nanobots in their brains. So the survivors could all talk together, regardless of the fact of how close or how far away each of them were. Yeah, that's where it's going, people. I know, it sounds lunatic, but really that's what they're pushing for. I mean, I don't want them in my brain. Absolutely not. I don't want them in my blood. I don't want them anywhere near me. Oh. This isn't some crazy fantasy, though. This is stuff that they are discussing. So anyway, back to the story. So yes, there's Amazon Alexa, Bixby, Cortana, Siri, all this other crap. And eventually, AI is going to talk back. In other words, computers will hijack your senses more so than they already do, with your sight and your hearing being intermediated by technology. Ding, ding, ding. And that is a little scary, he says. You think of what Facebook glitches could mean in a world where it doesn't just control what you read on your phone, but in what you see in the world around you. It's a glitch in the matrix. The promise, though, is a world where real life and technology blend more seamlessly. And the major tech companies promise that this future means a world of fewer technological distractions and more balance. Yeah, because the whole world's going to be a distraction as the physical and the digital world become the same thing. Oh, no there, Johnny. The digital world and the physical world should not be becoming the same thing. Therein lies the problem. Like I've said, they've been trying now all this time to suck us into this machine. And there's the end game. There it is. Physical and digital world become the same thing. Don't worry about it. Shh, it'll be painless. And we'll keep pushing that feel-good button while we're doing it. Oh, my God. You need to decide how you feel about that, it says. Don't worry about it because the future gets really crazy. Still, all those decade-plus investments in the future rely on gadgetry that you have to wear, even if it's only just a pair of glasses. But some of the craziest, most forward-looking, most unpredictable advancements go even further, provided you're willing to wait. These people, again, another one poo-pooing it. As long as you're willing to wait a few extra decades, here comes the craziness. I don't think it's going to be decades and decades away from us. We got good old picture of Kurzweil right in this section, which makes sense, but good old Elon Musk is invoked as well this week. That was 2 weeks ago. We got our first look at Neuralink. We've discussed this. That was the new company co-founded by Elon Musk with the goal of building computers into our brains by way of a neural lace. It's a very early stage technology that lays on your brain and bridges it to a computer. It is the next step beyond even that blending of digital and physical worlds as humans and machines become one. Bing, bing, bing. Assuming the science works. Of course, DARPA's been doing bazillions of dollars of research into brain implants, and we have the whole International Brain Initiative, so don't worry about it. It'll all work. At least for the experiments 1.0. It won't hurt too much. But in the future, it'll work. Assuming the science works, and lots of people, and that would be smart people, believe that it will. This is the logical endpoint of the road that smartphones have started us upon, and that would be neural lace brain implants. If smartphones gave us access to information, and augmented reality puts that information in front of us when we need it, then putting neural lace in our brains just closes that gap. But hey, don't worry about it because Elon Musk was not the very first smarty pants to think of doing that. Let's roll out Ray Kurzweil now. Because Ray has been talking about nanobots in our blood for a very long time. Musk has said that this is because the rise of artificial intelligence, which underpins a lot of other technologies, including our voice assistants and virtual reality, means that humans will have to augment themselves just to keep up with the machine. And if you are really curious about this idea, Ray Kurzweil is the leading voice on that topic. We always have to invoke Ray. The idea of human-machine fusion is a terrifying one, with science fiction writers, technologists, philosophers alike having very good cause, and I'm on this team, to ask what even makes us human in the first place. And at the same time, the idea is so new that nobody really knows what this world would look like in practice. Well, the thing is, I've spent a large part of my life exploring what it means to be human and what it means to be alive, what it means to experience things, what it means to no longer be alive, where we could possibly go, how we interact not only on a physical level, but potentially on a more ethereal level, looking at the physics behind how they could possibly exist. Guys, I'm telling you, there is a beauty that we live in right now. This thing that's nature, we don't even understand the whole other part of it. We understand just this. This is the solid part. We don't understand the other part, the part that happens in the areas that we cannot see. Remember, visible light is just a tiny little bit of that spectrum. I've told you before, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because we haven't learned about it yet as a species doesn't mean it's not possible. Just means our brains are still too puny to understand. The science hasn't gotten there yet, right? There are things we're talking about now that 20, 30 years ago was completely out there, Looney Tune science fiction, and now it's, new therapies they're trying or whatever, and it's miraculous cures. I really think that this whole sucking us into the machine is much more insidious than what we can even imagine. I think that there are other things out there that we don't quite know in this analog, big, beautiful analog world of just amazing connections between the micro and the macro and how it all works together and we're all the same elements and it's all the same principles. Like, it's just beautiful. I find it very beautiful. And they want to suck us into this digital hell forever, to upload you into the cloud, like Kurzweil says. When you download Nana at Christmas time for $29.95, you're going to be trapped forever. Your essence is going to be stuck in a vault, a digital vault that can be replicated, duplicated, spliced and diced, made to say and do whatever they want. And you'll never be free. If there was ever a freedom of energy, or we're released as, the magic smoke, whatever that is, what they used to call it back in the old days, they'd call it the ether. If we were the ether, into the clouds, into space, and we go back, and we're some sort of conglomeration of, energy, light, and particles or something. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But the entire universe recycles itself every day. Things die, things are born. Whether it be a star or a tree or a plant or a human, things die, things are born. That's the way it works. And the whole universe, and when you start looking at how light and sound and energy and all that, it all works on a spectrum. We've looked at that as well. And then when you start looking at X and Y axes, for every negative, there's a positive, and for every positive, there's a negative. Everything works in balance. You got 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. You look at the measurements, you look at the waves and the way they plot. I'm telling you guys, there's for every bit of matter, there's some antimatter out there. There's this whole other side that I've spent probably the last 35 years exploring in my quiet moments in my mind, trying to figure out how that whole negative realm, that opposites realm, the mirror image realm of here, how it must exist because it's in math. I mean, we plotted it. I plotted lots of those. I was very, very intrigued by plotting and doing trigonometry and plotting waves because there's something in there. And I truly believe that there is more that we don't understand, and I mean a huge amount more, like the whole other side of our reality. There exists this other, whatever it is, that they're going to steal from us. I really think so. We do not want to give up our analog world, and they're asking us to step right off into the digital world, to augment everything, to give up our reality, our sensations, our ability to connect to the analog, become digital, merge with it all. And you know what? If you don't, these digital creatures that we are creating, these AI assistants that are going to wipe your butt when you're old, Nana's new robotic assistant, are going to usurp your position. They are going to become the rulers. And in the end, they're not going to care. You know what? Join with us or don't. And if you don't, well, we're going to squish you like ants. And just, that's the choice. That's the choice we have in our not too distant future. The idea of human-machine fusion is a terrifying one. And it sure is. This is like one of my worst, all this is my worst nightmares, even worse than my worst nightmares ever coming true, because it infects every area of life. It infects everything. They've infected us. It's the brain, body, life, world snatchers. And I know I sound nuts, but I'm not. And this is like one of those red buttons for me. I just can't stand these people. And they just keep tra-la-lying us down that path, and we are just happily taking our suckling devices. They're like spankies. They make us feel safe. But they don't. They're not doing anything but stealing your life. Stealing your moments with your children. As you're sitting there talking to your kid, typing a message on your text. I mean, come on. Pay attention to your kid. As your kid's like walking off and getting lost because you're too tied up on Facebook with your stupid friends who you never even met, who really don't give 2 shits about you. We found out about that too, right? There was a study a while ago about like the majority of people don't even care on Facebook. I don't put anything personal out there at all. I try and put a few good science stories that'll make you go, huh? But that's about it. There's nothing out there that talks any personal anything about me. Because you know what? I'm not feeding a machine. And I was fully aware of this machine feeding way back when. But guys, just wait. You just wait, because it gets even worse. So the idea of human-machine fusion is a terrifying one, with science fiction writers, technologists, philosophers alike having very good cause to ask what even makes us human in the first place. And at the same time, the idea is so new that nobody really knows and what this world would look like in practice. And so if and when the smartphone dies, it'll actually be the end of an era in more ways than one. Yeah, like I started thinking, like when the smartphone dies, it's going to be wearables and implantables. That is going to be the end of an era. It is going to be like the bright new world. We are going to have Kurzweil with like this little bright halo with demons dancing around it on top of his head at that point, and he will rise. I mean, I'm really scared about this, guys. This is not natural. This is not what should be happening. We're being enslaved right in front of us, and we're doing it with a smile, and we're letting them do it to us. We're helping them do it to us, and we're handing them our children. It'll be the end of machines that we carry. When the smartphone dies with us passively, and at the beginning of something that bridges our body straight to the ebb and flow of digital information, and it is going to get weird. And yet lots of technologists already say that smartphones give us superpowers, ding, 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 with access to knowledge and wisdom and abilities beyond anything that nature ever gave us. So let's chuck nature in the garbage. And in some ways, augmenting the human mind would be the ultimate superpower. But guys, didn't anyone read any Greek tragedies? Didn't anyone read anything about hubris? Stop being so full of yourself and wanting superpowers. We don't deserve to be gods. That's it. That's the end result of this. And what's going to happen is because we are reaching to be gods, because we're reaching for the poison apple, because we're reaching for the knowledge that is forbidden, whatever. All these stories throughout history existed for a reason. They were parables to teach you a lesson. And if we didn't learn that lesson, we are destined to fail and do it over and over again. Well, guess what? Ding, we're about ready to do it again. Okay. And, I get excited, but they obviously cannot see that this is like the death knell that is happening right now. And I really don't want it to be the death knell. I really don't want this to be the way it ends up. It wasn't supposed to end up this way, at least not in my mind. All right, so out of San Francisco Gate, SF Gate, Cyborgs at work, employees are getting implanted with microchips. And we read about this before. They were putting them and they were doing them for like fobs to be able to just like wave your hand in front of a door and have all your permissions. Regina Duggan had talked about that a long time ago, so it's no big deal. They just inject it right into your hands, and then you get your superpowers 24/7. Remember, as they're moving to digital ID cards, digital currencies, there's countries all over the world now. Corbett had done a really good breakout of all the different countries now. There were huge numbers that are moving to this digital ID, this digital monetary system. And don't think that a microchip isn't going to be part of that, because it sure is. So they're calling them, quote-unquote, cyborgs. But maybe we'll look at that tomorrow, because here, I want to get to the beginning of this story, talking about cyborgs. So my computer doesn't want to do it. It's giving me a hard time. Let's go. Hold on. I had a friend of mine. Oh, here we go. I had a friend of mine send me this. And he says, "Oh, Jill, you got to read this." I read it and I thought of you. And I love when people read about some horrifying dystopia and then send me messages and say, "I thought of you" the second I read this. But it's true. This is a friend of 20 some odd years. Workplace surveillance is the new office perk. Now, this is something that we've talked about a lot, and I've warned you that this stuff was coming. Well, apparently it's here. The snack machine wants to scan Alice's fingerprint. Alice, of course not a real name, would prefer not to surrender her biometric data just to get a candy bar. But it is the preferred option in the break room. She could input a personal code, but instead, everything that she orders from the machine will be tracked, and she's not exactly sure where that data goes or what it will be used for. Well, maybe snack tracking isn't such a big deal to you, but considering that her colleagues are also wearing Fitbits, and their data from those Fitbits are sent to a third-party company contracted by her employer, And once a year, they are required now to provide a full blood workup, though yet another third party is taking this data. She's not sure who they are. And if Alice opts out, well, guess what? Her health insurance then will get more expensive if she doesn't do the Fitbit and the blood checkups. And she isn't sure where that data is going either, or even if it is shared with her employer. Everything seems to be a black box, she said. I'm mostly just confused because no one seems to bat an eyelash. Everyone just signs up for the blood test, and a significant portion of people are walking around with the fitness trackers. Alice is describing her new office as the Panopticon, a structure built for total surveillance. And that is where my friend, when he sent me this, he's like, make sure you click on the Panopticon link and read all about that, because it is, our whole world has now become the Panopticon. Your office may be one too, and whether through quote-unquote voluntary corporate wellness programs, smart badges that can record your voice and your GPS location, or surveillance applications in your mobile phone and personal computers, Americans are offering up more and more personal data, especially at work. And most of them don't even have much of an idea where that data goes or who's going to be using it. And there aren't many limits on what your employers can find out about you or what they can do with the data. You have no protection, people. Look out, because it's about to get really freaking ugly out there. And the more people who opt in now, guess what? The harder it will be for you to opt out in the future. So we are being sold out, people, by humanity, by your friends and family, all these people that are just going to be the Pied Piper following him out the door and toward that cliff. Yes, I'll give you everything about me. I have nothing to hide. You should hide it all. By having nothing to hide, you are selling us to the machine. And the story says it is about to get much, much worse. All right, guys, you try and have an awesome Tuesday.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and I am the host of Anti-Media Radio on